Okay, so welcome to the Climate Challenge Information session. I think it would be good for us all to go around and introduce ourselves. So it's a small group and hopefully we can have a back and forth conversation. So I'm Renee Hayter. I'm the Deputy Director of Sustainable Jersey, and I've been working on the Climate Challenge for the past 2 years. This is the third year that we're doing it. Rosalie, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Rosalie Morillo. I am the program manager for school content and special projects. It is my first year working for Sustainable Jersey, and previously I was a teacher for 13 years at Perth Amboy High School. So,
Great, Andrea.
Hi, so I'm Dr. Andrea Drews. I am professor at Rider University. I am a former middle school science teacher, kind of turned teacher educator, and yeah, have been lucky enough to get to work with Renee and Sustainable Jersey for quite some time since the inception of this project. So really excited to share some tips and tricks today.
Okay, great. Mark.
I'll unmute myself there. Hi, Mark Nibajeski. As Rosalie threw me under the bus there, I've been teaching a long time. This is my 29th year teaching, all of it in Perth Amboy. I currently have a environmental science class, AP Environmental, and as far as sustainability, if you want later, I can show you the hydroponic stuff we're doing. So yeah, looking forward to learning something new and hopefully having fun doing this.
Okay, great. Maureen, thanks.
Hi, I'm Maureen Human. Like she said, I participated in the last 2 years. My kids have participated in this project, and it's been really cool for them. It's been really awesome. They really get into it a lot. But I figured I'd just, stop in and just make sure, like, there hasn't been any changes and stuff like that. And I figured since we lost out last year, I figured I'd come back and see, if I can get some additional hints and stuff like that to maybe, get up there again. But I'm teaching for 22 years, 21 at Clearview Regional High School, and 11 years AP Environmental Science. But this is my environmental club that does the contest.
Great. And Christina?
Hi, everybody. I'm Christina Gauss. I teach Spanish at Rumson Fairhaven Regional High School. And we just recently completed a week-long mock conference mock trial. And we did fast fashion. And so my kids actually were on line with us, and we found you and the contest, and they're super excited to continue what the work we've started, and I'm here to learn more about it.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I don't know if Tennille, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Tennille Faison. I'm an educator in Jersey City, New Jersey. I teach chemistry to 10th grades primarily. And we entered the contest last year. We just wanted to, I guess, get a feel for how things were going to go. But then, we just figured at the last moment that we didn't have enough data. So we pulled out the last moment, and, we didn't actually fully compete. But yeah, I'm interested to find out more about, the requirements this year and just review everything that we need to know to enter again, and hopefully, things will work out better this year for us.
Yes, great. We hope so. And Veronica?
Yeah, sorry, I still have students here, but I'm hoping to learn more about this to maybe use it for my environmental club. I also teach environmental science, and I teach in Elmwood Park, New Jersey.
Okay, great. Okay, well, is everybody here familiar with Sustainable Jersey for Schools? Okay, so you don't have to be participating in Sustainable Jersey for Schools to participate in the Climate Challenge. And so the way we're going to operate today is Andrea is going to go through a slide deck, but since it's a small group, we can take questions as we go. So if you just want to raise your hand or speak up before, when you have a question that comes up, that would be great. And then hopefully we can have discussions as we go through it. So Andrea, I'll let you share your screen and take over.
There we go. Just make sure. All right, everybody. Oops, that's not the right one. Just kidding. Let's try this again. You would think I would be better at this by the time. How long have we been doing Zoom teaching and learning? There we go. Apologies. All right. That looks right, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. All right, so the purpose of today is really to kind of provide some more information about the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge, kind of broadly speaking, and then also some tips and tricks that we have kind of discovered to help teachers facilitate the challenge a little bit more easily in the classroom, and also share some resources. So kind of give a quick overview of what the climate challenge is, and then share some of the lessons learned from the pilot and from last year, actually. And then I'll be highlighting some resources that are available to you as teachers and also your students. And then we'll actually talk about the evaluation rubric, which is we all know rubrics for teachers around how the student submissions are evaluated. And then we hope to have some time for any additional questions or ideas, requests at the end. But like Renee said, please feel free to interrupt. I take no offense. All right, so the challenge itself. The challenge is designed for students in middle school and high school. If you are in a elementary or upper elementary school that has sixth grade, or sixth graders are definitely eligible, even if you're technically labeled as an elementary school. Our goal is for students to be working in teams of no fewer than 2, but no more than 12. So that definitely could mean you have more than one team submission per your class. If you're doing this as a class project, or if you're doing it at a club and your club is very large, you could certainly have 2 submissions from your class or from your club. And we'll talk a little bit more about how those 2 submissions could be similar, but could dovetail off of each other, but not be the exact same project. But yeah, so throughout the challenge, what we are asking students to do with your facilitation is to actually complete a school-based or a community-based project that addresses either the human causes of climate change or the negative impacts of climate change on the environment. And so through the process of actually doing this action project, we also create a digital story video, which is basically a fancy way of saying a video kind of telling the story about why this was something important for the students, a cause to take on, what they did, the challenges they experienced, so on and so forth. So we'll talk a little bit more about suggestions around the digital story in a few slides, but this is the kind of basic information. So grades 6 to 12, teams of students, and actually completing an action project, and then creating the digital story about it. The timeline for the challenge this year, so between now and February-ish, teacher registration is available and open. And I don't know, Renee or Rosalie, if you want to drop that link in for if you're not registered yet. Registration really helps us to make sure that we have enough resources available for all of you and to support you better as you continue to move between now and the spring. Also, there are 2 years worth of educational sessions available for viewing at the New Jersey Student Climate Challenge website, which is hosted by Sustainable Jersey for Schools. And there's a bit.ly that I will share, or maybe we can drop in the chat as well, where all of these great educational sessions are recorded and available for you or for your students to view. So those are all the kind of projects. Get registered, get your students thinking and working, because the challenge submissions are due the end of March. Then we take some time and we have an evaluation team of former educators turned teacher educators like me, or other folks from Sustainable Jersey. We have from the Department of Ed, DEP, et cetera. Some of our partners review the student submissions, and then we announce our finalists in May. And then last year we were lucky enough to host at Drumthwacket Mansion the awards ceremony, so hosted by the First Lady. And we hope to do that again this year, right, Renee? I can't wait.
For sure.
It was great. Not technically a part of the Student Climate Challenge, but sort of. There are some opportunities. I just wanted to put it out there for everyone that we have some upcoming teacher professional development for helping teachers to think a little bit more deeply about how they can connect climate change to their curriculum. Very often, I think Many of us on the call were science teachers, but not all. And so that's where we're really trying to move climate change out of just the science classroom, because climate change is a bigger issue than just a science one. And so this teacher PD is really helping, has a number of sessions that will help teachers get a better understanding of climate change themselves, kind of think about how the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards, which have incorporated science across all content areas, what does that actually look like for your specific content area? And then thinking about how you can bring climate change into your existing curriculum, you know, have some time to think about and work with students, or think about how you could work with students, and then how you could brainstorm with your content area peers to be doing this more effectively. So this is a professional development opportunity for middle school, high school teachers across all different content areas, supervisors, administrators, and there is a wonderful QR code if you want to quick snap that to register, but it's going to be held either January 10th at Rowan University or January 18th at the College of New Jersey. So kind of a Central Jersey offering and a South Jersey offering.
And I encourage you to share that with your teacher friends and peers at your school. It's free, and it's a whole day opportunity for you to connect with people from other schools and districts to talk about climate change education.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be a good day. So some resources. So all of these resources are available at this bit.ly. So if you click on this, y'all can still see that, right? The website now? It's great. Sometimes the links, I know with Zoom, it has a mind of its own. But so this is the website for this academic year. You can see some of the same information is hosted for you. Oh, I forgot to mention the school winners. What you actually win are grants to help support additional climate education initiatives at your schools that range from $2,500 to $500. But yeah, so here's information sessions that you probably already linked to since you're here. But if you keep scrolling all the way down, useful links. So here's a direct link to the registration form for you. At this registration form, you are just doing one per you as the teacher. Like if you know you're probably going to have 2 team submissions or 3 team submissions, you can indicate that at this registration form. But then there's also some very helpful resources, a teacher guide as a PDF, a student version of it, available both as a Word document and as a PDF document, because I know there are certainly times when I was doing things that it would have been helpful to have a Word version of a student guide, because I didn't want to give all the information to my students at one time, or I wanted to modify, due dates, things like that. So we figured we'd give you as a Word version as well to be able to modify as you feel is necessary. Some of the official rules, and then when we have submissions from your students, we do need a consent and release form, just so that we can, be sharing this. We have to always protect our students' privacy, but so there is a consent. And then the actual form, the link, the Google form to submit the projects. And if you want to get a sneak peek of what the submission form looks like, you can also look at it as a PDF. So these links here are super helpful. And they're all found here at this bit.ly. So kind of all of that background information, before I move on to lessons learned, does anybody have any questions or need clarification about what kind of the background story is for the climate challenge? Sorry, I'm looking off at my second monitor to see if anybody's raising their hands. Oh, I see some chat. All right, yep, just links going on. Great. Okay. All right. Well, so with those kind of general expectations in mind, we wanted to be able to share some lessons learned from the past 2 years of doing this project. And they are these 4, and I'll talk more about each of them kind of sequentially. But first and foremost, that some of the student projects in the past have had a bit of a tenuous connection to climate change. And so we want to encourage you as the teacher leaders and also your students to really hone in on making clear that connection between whatever your action is that the students are completing. Make a strong case for how that is connecting to climate change. Second is you actually need to do something. So a completion of a specific project or some sort of tangible outcome. Now, we say tangible outcome, but that could be a digital outcome as well. But it has to be something that we can like look to and point to. It can be a digital campaign, sure, but it has to be something that is actually going to not just be a present, like what you're submitting to us is not just a digital story recording where your students explain to us the causes of climate change. That's not really what we're looking for. What we're looking for is your students to actually do something about climate change. Oh no, okay, Mark, we will investigate that. And get that fixed for you. But yeah, so the completion of an actual project. And then when you're thinking about the digital story, which is the video students will create and submit, we really want to hear the story behind the project. Why was this project something interesting to your students? Why was this an important cause to take on? You know, the what, the when, the why, the how, like how were challenges overcome? What resources were helpful to you? Those kind of components as well. And then finally, we really feel that where educators have been most successful in completing this project is when they were able to connect the Student Climate Challenge to their units of study or to, you know, club activities. And so we'll have some suggestions and resources around that in just a moment. But when we think about focusing on the connection to climate change, so I'm sure we all kind of are aware that, you know, we have this kind of flow chart of happening, that we have human activity, which is the causes of climate change, leads into an increased concentration of greenhouse gases. That's what GHG is in our atmosphere, which then causes climate change, which then has us as humans feel, and animals, of course, feel the negative impacts of climate change. So we're hoping that your students are going to be able to effectively communicate how their project either addresses the human activities, the human actions that are causing too much greenhouse gases, which we call in the climate change world, we call mitigation, or how the project is going to be adapting. So adaptation is when we are focusing on how do we lessen the negative impacts of climate change. And so very typically, education for climate action is going to focus in one of these two areas, either on the mitigation, the early side, to stop so much human activity causing climate change, or how to lessen the negative impacts. So some examples of how different types of student projects could connect to, let's say, mitigation. So on the early side of things, you know, a human cause or human activity that causes climate change, for example, is, let me get my little spotlight guy, is our use of fossil fuels for energy and heat. So thinking about what are some projects that students could do to help mitigate this particular human activity? Well, we could explore how to increase energy efficiency or energy conservation in your school building. Think about how create an energy plan that relies more on renewable energy sources as opposed to non-renewable energy sources. Thinking about fossil fuel use. I know, Maureen, you had said that your group last year was around driving less and anti-idling, if I recall, right? Yeah, so that's an awesome campaign, because when we're able to link those actions, driving less, carpooling, biking, or having an anti-idling campaign. I know the school drop-off lines, man, they are wild, or buses or things like that. Thinking about how we can create informational campaigns to encourage people to idle less at the school building directly relates to this human action, this human cause, because we use fossil fuels for transportation. And so making a very strong case in their video and in their written materials is where we're really going to be able to feel strongly, oh yeah, these students really understand how this particular action project will connect to climate change because of these mitigation strategies. Okay, thanks Renee for fixing those links. but so on and so forth. So other, other kind of causes of climate change that relate to human activity around deforestation, agriculture. We had great projects in the past thinking about food waste, decreasing meat consumption, thinking about within industry, decreasing our dependence on single-use plastics, so on and so forth. So lots of different mitigation strategies that that could lead to student projects. But we have to make the case for explaining how using, for example, less single-use plastics, how does that connect to climate change? How does recycling paper connect to climate change? It's not just that recycling is a good thing to do, which it is, don't get me wrong, but why does that have a direct impact on decreasing our causes of climate change? So that's what we're really looking for, that can students make that direct link? And because that's really what the next generation science standards are looking for too, this cause and effect relationship.
Right. And another example would be like for tree plantings. The tree plantings have to do with, carbon sequestration that the trees, contribute to. So yeah, we had in the past some really great videos, but like it was on a litter campaign and they never really made the connection between litter and climate change, right? And even like a stretch connection would be with extreme weather and flooding, maintaining, not littering helps stormwater pass through the systems and, not cause flooding or backups in the water. But there has to be like the connection to climate change, not that it's just, or even like single-use plastics or water bottles, like the look, one of the submissions last year looked at the life cycle of the water bottle and where it impacted, where that production or that life cycle contributed to climate change in terms of either energy used to produce it or when it was decomposing in the landfill, the greenhouse gases it emitted. So that's a key thing, is really honing in on the connection to climate change.
Right. Yeah, that we're looking for projects that really demonstrate climate action, not just environmental action. There's plenty of great environmental, sustainable, activities that we can do with our students, but this particular project is really asking students to think about what are the climate change impacts. But so yeah, so similarly, just with like mitigation on the prior slide, adaptation, we can think about, like Renee brought up, that, tree plantings, things like that help with carbon sequestration. So that's taking, once the CO2 is already in our atmosphere, tree plantings and those types of projects would be an adaptation approach where it's, actually removing some of the excess CO2. Which can, kind of play into a different, actually, I guess that would still be mitigation, but anyway. So yeah, so thinking about other adaptation strategies where plantings we have here, that's what got me thinking here related to severe weather and helping to prevent heavy rain events, which lead to frequent and increased flooding, so on and so forth. So you can think about how the projects, and there are so many different projects, we give these examples not as guidance that we want to see 100 projects submitted on installing rain barrels, but we're just giving you as ideas and examples of some of the many different ways that students can get involved around climate change as an environmental issue, along with some of the strategies that are accessible and relevant for middle school and high school students projects to take on. But lots of different ideas here. So some of those projects, again, could be either school or community based. While during COVID, we were a little bit more flexible around home based. We really want to see a broader impact. So increasing, changing light bulbs in one student's house not exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for a little bit with a bigger outcome. So whether that's a student, a school, or a community-based impact is really what we're hoping for. And then that outcome, these projects can have many different outcomes. Of course, a physical change to the environment, first and foremost, sure, installing rain barrels. That's a good example. Thinking of
Dune
other,
restoration projects
Yep.
or tree planting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thinking about reduction in a climate change causing factor. So things like anti-idling campaigns where we're actually getting parents and teachers and school bus drivers to truly turn off those vehicles when they're sitting waiting. But then also just increased awareness. So kind of awareness campaigns around, what is it, like last out, lights out, something, things like that. Energy efficiency, energy conservation campaigns. Similarly, we had a lot of great projects recently around the idea of students advocating to their local school boards around and demanding, but really advocating for having better sustainable energy plans, climate action plans at the school level or at the district level. So thinking about civic engagement in that way. But then also these projects could be leading up to future efforts. So a project could absolutely have students research and create a funding proposal that they then present to the principal or to the school board, district personnel around what is the feasibility of installing solar panels. Now, of course, we're not expecting them to, from now to March, successfully install solar panels on a school roof, but students absolutely could be researching the funding and the needs of the school about why this would make sense or not in your school, and then taking it to a school board or taking it to an appropriate district personnel. So there still needs to be something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on that note, Sustainable Jersey does have a grant cycle open right now, funded by PSE&G. And the deadline for the grant is sometime in March. So that could be something that a team could do. The deadline is actually Friday, March 10th. So kind of identifying climate actions that the school could take and then researching them and coming up with a grant proposal that of course is approved by I think the Board of Education at least has to support the pass a resolution to submit the grant application. But and it's a great way for students to kind of do the research and then get really excited about bringing a grant to their school.
Yeah. And two birds, one stone, totally fine. We absolutely understand how wild and crazy and just kind of burnt out a lot of folks are in schools right now. And so if you can kind of make this, an additional pathway for bringing in funding, please do so. That's awesome. So that was kind of our first two lessons. So the first lesson being, of course, make that very strong, very clear connection to climate change. The second lesson was actually do a strong project. The third lesson learned was around creating an effective digital story. And so digital storytelling, how is it different from other videos, just any other presentation videos? Well, in our opinion, a digital story really is going to have that kind of personal storytelling components that is going to share the narrative. It's not just sharing information, it's sharing the story behind the information, behind the project. So when we think about what digital story can accomplish, there are 3 C's of digital storytelling. So first and foremost, through digital storytelling, we allow students to connect on an emotional level with the people or the events going on in the story. So as the audience, we connect those experiences of others to our own lives. Digital stories also help us to communicate our perspective and our perception. So kind of giving, like I said, a little bit more than just the information, more than first we did this, then we did this, then we did this. Why was this important? Why was this something that was meaningful to your group of students? Why, in their perception, was that something impactful for them? And then finally, stories are usually collaborative efforts, and we have some sessions recorded that you can check out around creating good digital stories, and they really focus on how can we have characters, how can we, like you think of any good movie, and we have people that we root for when we're watching digital stories, when we're watching videos, that we want them to succeed. And so hearing some of that backstory, hearing about the challenges that were experienced and how they were able to overcome it, those are all awesome components to include in a digital story. There are a number of resources available for teachers around creating digital stories. ACE, which is Action for Climate Emergency. It used to be Alliance for Climate Change or Climate Education, but they've rebranded themselves, but they have a phenomenal student video series called Our Climate, Our Future, where you really kind of get to know some of the kind of background information around climate change and why it's an important topic to care about and to do something about. And then Young Voices for the Planet, Green Ninja, and Lens on Climate Change all are great instructional resources for teachers around guiding students to create these digital stories. And they have numerous examples of great student-made videos as well on all three of these websites. And so all of these links are active hyperlinks that when after our session today, I believe Renee will be sending or Rosalie will be sending out our slides. And so they'll all be hyperlinked for you. All right. And then our final lesson learned is to try, we don't want this project to be just one more thing, because I know myself, and I know teachers that I work with very closely, when it's one more thing on what we already have to do, it doesn't get done. And so we want to try to avoid that. So we want to try to support you in thinking about how this project can be integrated into things that you're already doing. So we know that climate change is much bigger than just a science topic. And we see that reflected in the 2020 New Jersey Student Learning Standards, where climate change has been integrated across all content areas and all grade levels. So how can we be meeting some of these new standards and be meeting our own interest in encouraging student action on climate change? So we're advocating at wherever there can be an interdisciplinary, a team-based approach to the curriculum, but also to integrating this project, we highly, highly recommend and really found it to be, those are the environments where it's more successful for the teachers. Because when we think about teaching and learning around climate change, it is huge connections to civics and social studies, great connections of math and calculating output or calculating impact, thinking about literature and language arts. How do you create a persuasive piece? How do you tell a story? And then service learning and other helping students with SEL connections around how can we feel better about this big, scary environmental issue. What research has shown is that how we help students feel better about this and combat some of that climate anxiety is by doing something about it. And so addressing some of those SEL concerns, we can also, feel that there are connections to this project. As you're thinking about more specific curriculum, for those of you who think that you might be bringing this into your, your 7 to 3 or 8 to 3, 301 session, whatever it is, around climate change, Clean Network has fantastic educational resources. The New Jersey Department of Ed has its own website. There is a kind of parallel website, the New Jersey Climate Change Education Hub, which seeks to extend what some of the Department of Ed has done. Subject to Climate is another really phenomenal collection of interdisciplinary kind of climate integration, what do they call it? A resource database. Lots of great opportunities there. And then if you're curious, there is a teacher-friendly guide to climate change, which is a book that comes with kind of lots of more detailed information. If you're not thinking that you're going to be able to attend some of the PDs, that you want to teach yourself a little bit more around climate change, that's a great opportunity as well, so that you can explore and see some of the different connections that might fit for your curriculum.
Yes, so just a comment on that, on that slide, Andrea. So subject to climate is kind of is a great resource, and that's who actually put together the New Jersey Climate Education Hub in collaboration with Sustainable Jersey and some other organizations. So that has the same information as a subject to climate website for the most part, but then it has NJ specific lesson plans by New Jersey teachers. And in the resource section, I think there's a resource on project-based learning and climate related projects for students that might give some ideas. I'll try to look, meant to look that up. I'll look up the link and send it with the slides.
Yeah, and actually subject to climate is the reason I kept both of them on there is subject to climate I think is a great group to, if you're interested in this type of work, especially kind of cross-curricular climate education, action, etc. They have a really great email list that comes out regularly, and just yesterday they sent out one that was all, kind of had three main tracks of resources available for you as the teacher, but also for your students. And the first was, kind of refining your own understanding of climate change as a teacher. And then the next one was very specifically for folks who are not science teachers, but want to bring in climate change into their classroom, into their curriculum, and make those connections. And then the third one was around climate action and supporting students to do that. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. Dovetails very nicely with really our project here. So some great resources are available at both, they're kind of the same website. Yes, Renee's absolutely correct, but at kind of two different groups or two different landing spaces, I guess I should say.
I have the link to that blog, or I'll forward the email
Yeah.
to everyone that
That'd be great.
has that blog series. It has a lot of good resources on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And so I know Renee in the chat dropped in the direct link to the one of the sessions on digital storytelling. I also just wanted to make everybody aware that we have a wide array of available student sessions. So the student sessions that we recorded over the past 2 years really were geared for a student audience. So we pulled a wide, diverse array of people who were experts in these areas and kind of worked with them to communicate to students more about energy efficiency, supporting the transition to electric vehicles, thinking about waste reduction, stewardship, community education and outreach, advocacy, etc. And then, as I alluded to before, and as Renee pointed out as well, that we do have the upcoming teacher professional development days. And so I left this as a question mark that if we have time, I know I'm running a little bit tight on time, but we're still in we have a good idea of what our dates in January are going to focus around, but I would love to open up a conversation if anybody has specific requests or needs. We're still kind of in a tweaking phase that we might be able to add something or make sure that we address fully on those professional development days in January. So we'll table that conversation for just 1 second. I just have a couple of final other resources. As you're thinking about projects for your students you can do, you don't have to limit yourself to your own personal resources, your own school resources. There are tons of other resources that can be supporting you in this effort that are online from various colleges and universities. Think about nonprofit organizations like Sustainable Jersey and Sustainable Jersey for Schools, Rutgers Co-op, kind of the university extension, thinking about other New Jersey state level organizations and technical assistance programs. And then one I still think is a really underutilized resource is your local municipality or your school green team and some of the regional hubs. Tons of resources. The Sustainable Jersey for Schools website is amazing with actions and details to support actions that kind of dovetail along with the Sustainable Jersey for Schools model, but really could be just a wealth of opportunity and information as you're kind of planning out some of the climate action, or as the students rather are planning out the climate action. So don't forget about these, don't sleep on these.
And in the teacher guide, there's a link to a recording where you can find out how to find your local contacts in the municipal program. Or if you're having trouble, just please reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you.
Mhm. And I think the last thing I just wanted to point out is the rubric. So the rubric is similar as last year. There are a few tweaks in language, but it's basically the same. So if you're familiar with it, awesome. And I would love any feedback if anybody has comments. But this is the rubric in two parts, where we will be evaluating the student submissions. So the first 12 points, so 12 out of 20 points, comes from the video itself. So in the video, we will be evaluating the creative elements, the storytelling that the video was able to accomplish. So hoping that students, find a way to ensure that the video communicates to the audience in a creative way. It's interesting, it's engaging, the purpose is clear, the narrative, the story behind it is clear and insightful and connects to the overall project. During that, the video itself, we also, as I was alluding to before, we want students to very clearly be able to explain the human impact on the environment, that cause and effect relationship between the human activity and climate change. So making sure that they are connecting the project that they complete, the action project, with this cause and effect kind of relationship that happens between human activity and climate change. And then finally, of course, because we want that positive orientation, we welcome hearing about challenges, but we also, of course, want the action project and the accompanying digital story to focus on solutions that are innovative, that are practical and can be implemented in anybody's school, but that y'all did it were in your own school. And so telling us more about that and how it was a solution for your local community or school. So yeah, so you can kind of see, a classic rubric with what might, ding down points. But so these are the first three elements of the rubric. So that the digital story itself is creative and clear, communicates clearly. The second being the strong explanation of the climate change connections. And then how is it actually addressing the problem? Accompanying the video, we have a written application or a submission form as well, where students will be just answering a few things, like 4 or 5 questions in total, around what kind of putting into a little bit more words than the video may allow. Oh, because I think I forgot to mention. So we're not looking for 20-minute videos here. Short videos, 3 to 5 minutes is what we typically say. We're not looking for theses or dissertations here. We're kind of can communicate an effective story in a short amount of time. So what the written component allows students to expand a little bit more, to really demonstrate that they understand that cause and effect relationship between human activity and climate change. And then, so that's this first part. And then some of the other written components of the application asks students to reflect on what was the inspiration behind the project, what were some of the challenges, what were some of the resources they utilized, so on and so forth. And so evaluating those other written project components, making sure that they are well described, thoroughly detailed, etc., in the steps of the project, both the design and the completion of the action project are 4 more points here and 4 more points here. So altogether, 8 points for the written component, 12 points for the video, altogether 20 points is the total score. Whew. All right. I know that was a lot of information thrown at you very quickly, but I would love to, in our final 13, 15 minutes, chat a little bit more with all of you about what questions you have, what other resources you feel could be super helpful to you as you bring this to your classroom, and yeah, any other ideas for professional development that would be supportive. Yeah, so I'll just leave it. Renee or Rosalie, anything else to add? I should have tossed it to you first.
No, that's great. Let's open it up and see if there's any questions or suggestions for us. You want to stop sharing your
Oh yeah,
screen?
sorry. Yep,
Mm.
good. Sorry. There we go.
So I'm guessing
Okay.
everyone is already signed up for the PD, right?
Okay, so does anybody have any questions about the climate challenge in general, or what the expectations are, or like a specific question about would this project be a good project, that sort of stuff? Any questions you have, we'll try to address.
Are
Veronica?
there brainstorming sheets? Oh, no one's here now. Are there brainstorming sheets or things to get the ball rolling for student ideas?
Ooh, that's a good idea. We have some resources that kind of help guide students through some of the the project planning steps in the teacher guide and in the student guide. But actual like student, like, good old black line masters or like, sheets for the students to actually write on or complete online. I don't think that's something that we have incorporated in the past, but that is a good idea of something that we could, help think about and create. And we do have in the teacher guide, you'll see there is a link to kind of like an ongoing as often as need be resource page, Google Doc basically, that we keep updating. So that is something that we could certainly think about how to create and support in your specific sense, kind of brainstorming ideas. But yeah, or any other resources that you think would be helpful.
Yeah, I know that one of the teachers that participated last year shared her story about how she did that it was an environmental club, and they broke down to groups and they brainstormed, and she said it was amazing how they kind of coalesced around the idea that they finally used. So that is a good strategy. So we'll look into that. And anything else? Christina, are you interested in the climate challenge from your classes, or are you the environmental club advisor?
I am not the environmental club advisor. We're pumping into the 2020 student learning standards. I'm representing Spanish and languages.
Oh, great.
We've worked interdisciplinary with multiple clubs as well as different subject areas. So yeah, we're coming.
That is great. You're a leading edge. We do have about 90 people signed up for the TCNJ Professional Development Day, and we do have a couple of foreign language teachers
I
there.
think we have like 6 or 7 signed up. So
Yeah.
join us.
Yeah, join
We
us.
would like more people that are focused, not science focused,
Right.
Yes.
right, to help assist with the integration, right? 'Cause
And
it's
also
gonna
to
be
talk about
complicated.
interdisciplinary approaches.
Right. Great. Thanks.
Or any other questions, or Maureen, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but any lessons learned from your perspective as someone who's participated?
The first year we didn't realize there was a limit in terms of the video, and we did this really long, like, involved video, and then it was like the day before it was due, and then we had to just like cut it down real short, and it took a lot of time. So if you're doing the video, I think that it really takes a lot more time than you think, and it's a lot more complicated than you think to get the information in that 3 to 5 minutes that you need to like include on the rubric, in addition to like all the storytelling and everything like that. That's probably the hardest part for my kids, is because a lot of them are like data driven and like science driven, and for them to like create the storyline is really, really hard for them. So I don't know if that's going to be a challenge for your kids or not, but that's a big part of our challenge every year. So
That's a good
Something
point.
that can be very helpful is if I know Perth Amboy has like a communications academy, and they have a class that's focused on video production. So even getting those students involved in the climate challenge might be very helpful, and kind of giving them that task to video record, like to record the work that your students are doing, so that it can have those data focused students working on the project, and then the video production kids are also going to be learning because they're going to be watching it and listening to the information. So it's kind of like doubling down on interdisciplinary work, but they're both working towards climate change because they'll be creating the video and learning the information at the same time.
And that's a great idea.
And we did actually end up doing that last year. We had a volunteer from one of the media programs that was a former student of mine. And I think it really did help them to have that. And it just even the editing skills that she brought to the table were like really valuable for the whole situation. So we're going to try that again. Hopefully the same girl will help us this year. But that's a really good point, a really good way to kind of bring everything in. So
Cool.
Great.
Some great troubleshooting. Any other questions or roadblocks that you might anticipate that we can help you think through? Yeah, Veronica.
So I've worked on like other grant programs before where you have to like itemize. This isn't like that where you have to say what you're going to spend the money on.
Oh, the award money? No.
Yeah, the award money is yeah, there's no reporting requirements or anything. It's just intended to be used to support climate change education initiatives at whatever the discretion of your school is.
Hello. I just had a question about the nature of the topic that we, choose and the students decide to do. Like, would it be cautious not to choose a topic that might, be uncomfortable for like a project on a problem that's in our school or in our communities, because people are very touchy these days, and we don't want to choose something that would be kind of uncomfortable for like the leaders over any organization that we're part of, our schools, our institutions. So I mean, has that issue ever come up, or like you ever talk about that with teachers and students about choosing a safe topic? I mean, I know climate change is big for everybody globally, but is there, just some topics that you would choose to steer away from?
No, not
Yeah.
not really. It hasn't really come up. And in fact, climate justice is a very important topic. But does any other teachers have any idea about it? We haven't come across that at all.
I would think that it's how you frame the narrative, right? Because you could discuss issues like if you think about, coming up from an urban community, there's like issues with like climate change specifically in urban communities, right? That it hits those towns harder, right? Maybe there's issues with poverty and like litter and things like that. And you don't want to highlight that, oh, this is a dirty town, but it's a way you kind of like shape the narrative to kind of make it sound like it's something that needs work and change, but not in an accusatory and an attacking way. It's a matter of like saying like, this is something that we want to kind of help and like grow from. And that, I think it's the way you shape the narrative. I think it's really important to talk about those issues and not shy away from them, but we do understand there's politics within the school system, and you don't want to be kind of attacked for that as well. So I think that would be something that you would discuss with your schools and maybe like your superintendent, right? To just kind of say, hey, the students were considering kind of talking about this issue. What are your thoughts on it? And I would say do that before kind of submitting anything, just for your own safety, because I do understand like there's a lot of political issues within the school system that you also want to not hurt your job, right? Because I've seen that happen. So,
Yeah, and I was just going to tack on there. So you definitely know your school and your local community best. And so the guidance that you, or the shaping of the narrative or the shaping of the direction that, we want this to be student directed. But of course, I mean, as teachers, we can help facilitate students to think through challenges and think through opportunities to make sure that they are as successful as possible. And so thinking through kind of maybe not just for political or other kind of challenging issues in that light, but thinking through like, well, what is a project that we can accomplish between now, it's December, and March, with, as Maureen pointed out, the idea that the digital story side of it does take some time. And so really it's something that we can accomplish between now and January, February. So it's not going to be, like, oh, well, we're going to install a charging station, or we're going to, like it doesn't necessarily have to be this huge project. So we can help students think through what is a project that can have a great impact, but is something that is achievable between now and February, now and March. And so some of that guidance and scaffold from you is absolutely appropriate. And it's where you see, where your role fits in as their kind of mentor.
Yeah, and you can also, start working on your video as you're doing the project, because you want to record the things that you're doing throughout
Absolutely.
the project.
We love pictures.
And we don't, obviously the videos should not be political, but for the purposes of climate change, focus on the science, and the science is there, right? And the facts are there that greenhouse gases are contributing to climate change or whatever. So, and flooding's an issue. So, don't blame the politicians or name names or anything like that. But as Rosalie said, just focus on the cause and effects that are well documented in science. And the whole idea of this project is to give student agency, like to promote student agency. So we don't want to make them feel that they can have their agency, but kind of teaching them how to effectively use that agency without turning people off is kind of what Rosalie was talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
I see your point.
Anything else? And if anybody has any questions along the way, please feel free to email us. You can email, there's the New Jersey Climate Challenge website, email address, or you can email me directly or Rosalie, and you'll have that email when we send you out the link, the slides, and I'll send you this blog so that you have that too. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and please share the information about the PD sessions, especially Maureen in South Jersey. We particularly wanted to do that to help people, with travel. And right now, we kind of added that on when we saw how popular the TCNJ event was. So any way that you can share it with your networks, we'd appreciate that. And yeah, and if you have any questions along the way, please reach out to us. Thank you so much. And if you haven't registered for the climate challenge yet, please do. So like Andrea said, we can kind of keep you updated on everything.
And registration is not like, we're not going to come chasing you down. If something happens and you can't submit a project, that's okay. But
Yes.
It does help us to plan. So registering and then maybe something doesn't quite come together, we understand. But we would rather have a registration and then not and be able to support you, as opposed to not having a registration at all. So
right. And people can register along the way. Like if you're talking to a teacher and they're like, hey, my kids are already doing this project in February and this would be a cool thing, they can join at any time as long as they submit the project by the deadline.
Great.
All right,
Well,
great.
so
Well,
much,
thank you
everyone.
all. Have a great evening. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you,
so
Andrea.
much, all of you. Thanks.